Good morning. It's a nice cold day in New York, that's for sure. Although he doesn't seem to care. This video is going to be a little different. This is going to focus on this Jetta, which is a 2008 Volkswagen Jetta with a 2-liter turbo. It's a Wolfsburg edition. Unfortunately, she's been sitting out in the snow for a little bit. She went on a really long trip, I'd say a couple weeks ago, and we went to Knoxville, Tennessee and back, and there's a lot of driving around, and I put almost 2,000 miles on it in 1 week, so kind of gave it a rest this week, or 9 days. So now you can see there's a lot of ice all over it. Trying to get into the car. Hopefully we can get in. We're going to find out. It's a little slippery out. See if he wants to play with the snow. I guess not. Oh boy. We've got a lot going on here. Couldn't get the doors open this morning. It was feeling like I was going to break the latches trying to do that, so I don't really want to do that to it. See if I can scrape some of it out of here. But this car's got a pretty cool story behind it. I'd be glad to tell you about it. Just trying to get this thing all cleaned off here. And I'm not so good at my first video. So as I was saying in the last clip, before I accidentally hit stop on the record, this car has a pretty cool story behind it. I'd be glad to tell that to you. I think I'll do that while I go for a drive to the store. As long as I can get in, I think maybe now I can. Because I got some snow off a bit earlier on the doors, so hopefully we've had a little bit of sunlight. Now we don't have any sunlight, so this is New York for you. You never know what you're going to get. Just lots of ice, lots of snow this week. The dogs are loving it. They don't really care about the snow. They think it's fun. Personally, good for them. I'm not a big fan anymore. But let's see if we can get into this car and see if she'll start up. It's been sitting for about 9 days. Oh, look at that. Chiseling the door out actually helped. Alright. Oh, there's some window cleaner that froze. It's been sitting for, like I said, 9 days. Lights are on. Everything's probably good. Just gotta make way. I bet you anything, we'll start right up. Oh yes. So it's 18 degrees. And fired right up after 9 days. I really can't complain about that. I'm going to have to scrape some more ice off this car. But as soon as that's all done, I will be right back with you guys. Man, it is cold out, especially without any gloves on. Okay, so we're here in the car. We're on our way to get some groceries. Something everybody's got to do, right? So, anyway, this Jetta is probably one of my favorite cars that I've ever had, period. I had a 96. That was a great car. I really enjoyed that. And I also had a Passat once upon a time. Also really enjoyed that car. So when this thing came about, I kind of jumped right on it. My cousin made an offer to me. It was sitting in his garage for 4.5 years because of the fact that he blew the engine up on it, and he didn't want to do anything with it at the time. It was very expensive. The 2-liter turbo engines are a very expensive thing to find and replace. It takes a lot of work. The engines themselves are expensive. I would say they're selling right now. They're still selling for about $3,000 used on eBay, so it's hard to get a cheap one for it. So at the point in time when it was 4.5, 5 years old, I think, it was just not worth putting that kind of time and money into it, because it probably would have been close to about $9,000 to fix this car. So he let it sit for 4.5 years. Good. It sat in the garage. It was mainly protected. Things other than a couple boxes that were on top of it, it was pretty well protected. So it made it, and it didn't rust out. Everything was good, except it didn't have a working engine. So a lot of work has gone into this. I went and picked it up with my uncle in his big Ford Excursion at the time. We put it on the car trailer, brought it home. It sat in my driveway for a good 4 months as I gathered parts for it because it was missing a few parts. Somebody had stolen some parts off of it, and some things were broken, and just little things here and there. It was a project, and having to take the gas tank apart so I could get the old fuel out of it and vacuum things out and just really give it a good detail before I even sent it to the shop to get worked on. It took a few months to get things together. So, and you know, sometimes with eBay it takes a while to get the parts that you order, so it could be 2-3 weeks before you see what you order. So it took a while, but it was worth it. So it was brought down to my local mechanic. I can't put any name out there at the current time, but I brought it to my local mechanic, brought an engine that I had sourced from eBay from Colorado, had to have it shipped here, picked it up at YRC Freight, had it shipped here, and he got to it, put the engine in. Also, at the same time, he regasketed a lot of the engine, put things in it that needed to be replaced, as far as cam followers and the high pressure fuel pump needed repair, and just little things. It added up to a decent sum, but it was totally worth doing it. And it took a little bit to get the kinks worked out. There were some ECU kinks, as there always are. The car sat for a very long time. The ECU was not happy, so it needed to go get reprogrammed, and things just took a little while after the engine got put in because it didn't know how to learn the idle process. So it had to be reprogrammed, reflashed. Things just took a little bit, and I had to deal with a dealership that they were inundated with work, and it took them about 3 weeks to get anything done with it. Then by the time I got it back, something was loose, and the car wasn't running right again. But at the time, I didn't know anything was loose. I had to go searching for things, so I went on the forums and poked around. People said, "Oh, sounds like one of your high-pressure fuel line sensors is unplugged." Oh no, it wasn't unplugged. It just had a corroded connection. I took it apart, cleaned it, put it back on. Car runs perfectly. So that's one thing you can check if you have a high-pressure fuel pump. Check engine light, and your car doesn't want to keep running. Especially with the Volkswagen, check those sensor wires, because that'll cause problems. So yeah, that's one of those things you just need to be aware of. And in the long run, I'm just very happy with how this turned out as far as having a rebuild done on it. And after that, I drove it around a bit and decided to have it reflashed to its APR Stage 1 tune. That worked out pretty decently at first, and then as of lately, I've been having some problems with it, so I had to turn it off because the car was misfiring. If you get up into the 3,000-4,000 RPM range, I'm not sure what's going on. I did put new plugs and coils on it. Plugs are gapped properly. It's just something is not right with the tune. And I called up the people who put the tune on it, and they said it probably just needs to be reflashed. But I'm not sure if I want to stay with APR for one or two reasons. Mainly because it's a can tune, and it's something that is hit and miss, especially if you're putting different parts on your car and you're not using all OEM parts. It can be a little bit tough. You have to know that sometimes you have to change things back out. I had problems with the mass airflow sensor, and if you don't get one that works within the specific range that your ECU is looking for, that tune will not be happy, and your check engine light is bound to come on, bound to stay on. The car is going to start lurching and acting funky. It'll still have its power, but it's not going to be right. So I just think that I'm going to have to do something else as far as the tune if I'd like to keep it tuned. The other thing about the APR tune that I'm not sure I'm very happy about is it seems like it's not very consistent. It doesn't seem like it's always the same power point. And I know that could be partly due to my setup with my car. However, it just does not seem like it's always the same thing. Some days it'll be better than others, and it doesn't even have to be a different temperature outside. It fluctuates in its usability. Sometimes you'll catch a good moment with it, sometimes you'll catch a bad moment with it, and right now it's a bad moment with it because it just keeps breaking up between 3,000 and 4,000 RPM, and to me that's pretty useless. So I'm not really sure where I'm going to go from there. However, I do know that at some point I probably will decide to go with a customized tune. I'm going to have to find somebody or some place that's I'm going to have to find somebody that is willing to work on that, because I just don't think I'm going to stick with this for long as far as the tune. Otherwise, this car has been really good. I haven't had any major problems with it that stand out to me, just minor little things. I've had to do brakes, put some tires on it, oil changes, obviously. I did have to have the rear parking assembly taken care of a couple weeks ago before I left. It was all bound up, and they had to free things up, and it's still not right, and we are aware of the fact that we have to replace the rear calipers because the parking and brake is built into them, and it's upstate New York. Things are going to rust. That's just how it goes. So for something that's 12 years old, it's a 2008, I'd say that I'm pretty happy that that's the first major rust issue I've had to deal with as far as components on this car. And, okay, it needed a wheel hub, but what car doesn't need a wheel hub after 100,000 miles? I mean, we're sitting at 104,000 miles right now, and I put this car on the road with 74,000 miles and a used engine. So, for those to be the only real problems I've had with it, I can definitely tell you I'm pleased with this car, and for the price point that I paid to get the whole thing done, it's still worth it. Everything is good. So right now the only issues that I know about are the tire pressure sensor light is on because I put some different wheels on it and they had some dead sensors, and we didn't know that until after we put them on, because guess what? Sometimes you just don't check everything when you should, but life happens, so the light's on. It doesn't really bug me. However, the airbag light decided to come on the other day after I spilled some water in the front seat, so I think that's on me. So I'm told that it needs a airbag deployment sensor in the seat, which would make sense because it was a half a bottle of water and it took about half a day to dry that seat out. So that's my fault, not the car's fault. And I don't think there's anything else really going on with it that is noteworthy. I've just had problems with mass airflow sensors not being in spec, having to run back to the store and get other ones that work better. But I think that's the only problem I've had as far as weird things with this car. You'd think there'd be more. It's got a dual cold air intake on it, made by Forge. So the dual cold air intake is pretty cool with this car, especially if your windows are down and you can kind of play with it and give it some acceleration and let off, and you can hear all sorts of fun noises. I enjoy it. You can do it all day long, but it's too cold today for me to put the window down to really enjoy that noise. I'm just happy that the car is out and running and it's having a nice time, not getting all salted up today because the roads are still kind of frozen. So on that note, I'm going to run in, do my shopping, and I'll pop back out shortly. Alright, so we're back here in the car where it's nice and warm. It's so freaking cold outside, I don't want to be out there. And you know what? I was thinking about this while I was in the store. You guys are probably wondering what happened to my sweatshirt. Well, funny story. I was at work one day and we were power washing a house. I put this on a fence so it would dry off, and I happened to be spraying something with bleach and the wind caught it and it got all over my sweatshirt. So I decided it was pretty cool looking, so I figured, well, why not? Let's just keep it. So here we are, and I use it for stuff like painting and whatever have you. It could get dirty for, so it's kind of fun. But anyway, so more about the car. About 8 months into having it, I finally was able to get it back into Volkswagen for paint correction, because they did have a rust warranty that was extended. A lot of the fenders were rusting out, the hoods were rusting out, the rocker panels were rusting out, and they noticed that there was a problem, so there was a class action warranty on that. So finally, after 8 months of trying to find a place that would take it, somebody finally took it in, and they did a fantastic job. I think it's got a new hood on it, if I remember correctly. They put a new hood on, they put new rockers on, they paint corrected any other spots that were starting to have a problem. I got it back free of charge. Thank you very much, Volkswagen. It worked out very well for me, and the car looks beautiful. Right now it's all covered in crap because, I mean, I drove it back from Knoxville and I didn't really wash it off because there wasn't salt, but there's some dirt going on, so it's a little dirty right now. I'm gonna have to spray her off at some point, but that'll probably be tomorrow or something when it warms up a little bit outside. Things are a bit cold today, so I'm not gonna be washing anything. It's just, I think I would probably freeze the locks on this thing, probably freeze the door handles, just because I'm driving and it's about 20 degrees. It's not good for stuff. I already had trouble getting into the car this morning, so we don't need to cause more issues right now. So what I'm really getting at with this video is I really like this car. I like the whole process behind putting it together. Since April of 2018, it was put on the road successfully in July 2018, right at the end of the month. So I really started driving it around August 2018. So you could say that I've had this car on the road for at least almost a year and a half. So, and with the minor problems that I brought up a few minutes ago, I'm very happy with it. I think maybe the whole build cost was $5,500, when if I wanted to buy this car in this condition, it would probably have cost me about $8,000 to $9,000 to find this car, especially with the low mileage it had on it. But that's another thing I'd like to bring up real quick before the end of the video. It's got none of its original driveline. Transmission is not original. Motor engine is not original. So it's kind of a Franken car, in a way, and I kind of like it. The transmission was replaced, I think, at about 55,000 miles. I'm just guessing, don't quote me, I'll have to go through the paperwork, but I'm pretty sure I have the receipt for that. So that was replaced under warranty because the first generation of the transmission, which is the DSG 6-speed, they were just terrible, unfortunately, and they had to replace a lot of transmissions on these cars with different upgraded designs. And I've got 104,000 on the car now, so it's approaching about 50,000 miles on this transmission. So I haven't experienced any trouble with it personally. It shifts great. It's been serviced on time. It's just not causing me any trouble. So, I mean, that's only 50,000 miles in. We'll find out later what happens, but back to the engine. So the engine blew up around 74,000 miles, and like I said, it sat for a good 4.5 years or so, and I did find one on eBay, and it was one of those things where I had to keep making offers and wait and wait and wait. So I sat on that engine for probably about 3 months or so, until one day the guy emailed me and said, hey, listen, I'm willing to get rid of it for that price at this point, and if you can get a truck over here, I'll have it on a pallet, we'll load it up. And at that time, this engine that's now in here had 110,000 miles on it, so it had more than the car had. But when I brought it into my local shop, they tore it down, checked everything out. They said it was in very good health, and it still seems to be. So they regasketed it at the time, and also while it was in there, before the engine went in, they did the whole walnut shell sandblast down the carbon on the valves, because they were kind of, he sandblasted down the valves on the engine because they were just covered in all sorts of carbon and soot, and that happens with these GDI engines because the gasoline's not flowing through your valves, so it's not cleaning them. So after 40, 50,000 miles, your car starts running like crap, and you don't know why, and it starts sounding like it's clattering, well, you need a valve cleaning done. It's what it is. Any GDI engine that starts doing that, it probably needs the valves cleaned, and there's no way around it, so they cleaned it, and they said for 110,000 miles the buildup wasn't too bad, but I'm certainly going to keep up with the cleaning probably every 50,000 as recommended, so we'll see how that schedule goes. But I've only put 30,000 miles on it so far, and this engine runs like a top. It doesn't skip a beat, except for my brother's wedding day, where it left his bride-to-be stranded on the bridge, and the check engine and EPC light flashing, and caused a whole morning of mayhem. But that's neither here nor there. The car's been fixed. It was just a silly $20 coil, and it was back on the road half an hour later. But you know, it always happens on wedding morning, right? So anyway, that's what I think about this car. I love it, and I'm going to do some more footage on it at some point when it's not 20 degrees out, but I might pop the hood when I get back home. We'll see what goes on. It's just really cold. I might not even be able to get the hood open because there's so much ice going on it. So we'll see. I'll see you in a bit. What is that? What are you doing? Is there something over there? Was that a bird? What's going on? Are you having a good day out here? I know it's cold. I think it's freezing. But I think you love it, don't you? You love it. I think so. Give me a paw. No? Yes? No? Alright. Alright, we gotta get more groceries out of the car. Come on. Come on. Alright, so now we're back at the homestead. We've got the GoPro going. And, here's one of my very funny things that is a pain in the butt. Trying to open the hood. The hood latch doesn't exactly have all of its pieces inside the car, so you gotta kind of play with it. But anyway, so I figured, well, we'll pop the hood real quick for you. And it's not as icy as I thought. We're a little dirty. We've definitely put a lot of miles on in the past few weeks. Probably almost 3,000 in the past few weeks. Just playing around, going on trips, doing fun stuff. So the gist of it is, things are pretty good under the hood. So what we have here is we do have a forged twin take, dual cold air, and once in a while it will blow out this little guy here, your little mass airflow, just because it's a lot of cold air. It's a lot of air being rushed in, and it will break the filament after a bit. Generally I can get about 15,000 miles out of them, then you have to replace them. It's unfortunate. So yeah, here's the used engine with more miles in the low mileage shell. So here we go. There it is. It's cold out, so I'm not going to be out here forever doing this. So yeah, this hood before had rust all along here, and it had a big freaking dent, and it was just the worst thing ever. And a funny story, when I first had this on the road, I had it on the road for about 2 weeks, and somebody at the local store did not see my car and came and tore this whole entire fender apart. This light was just out on the ground, the grill was off, the bumper cover was just hanging on by a thread. Literally, I had it on the road for 2 weeks. So that was the beginning. But they paid to have it put back together at the time. But then when it went to get the rust correction done, it got a new hood. So all that was just no big deal. We are running original OEM wheels. These are not the wheels that came with the car. I had to go get new ones because I had an incident where I hit some big pothole on I-90 coming back from Albany, and it bent 2 rims on one side, so the car was just not happy. But as you can see, this is in pretty good shape. It is not rusty at all. Another reason why I don't generally drive it much in the winter if I don't have to. But wheels are in good shape. Car's just really dirty right now. But as you can see, rockers are looking good. Things are looking alright. I'll let you get a shot of the other side. But yeah, even when I changed the oil on this car recently, I did not see any rust on the underside of it, other than like on a couple control arms and, you know, things like that that are pretty common. But
Otherwise, for 104,690 miles, this car is in good shape. I'm glad to have it. This is just the best part right here. Man, I can't get over it. This is just the best part right here. Wolfsburg edition. They were able to line that stuff back up when they put new fenders on it. But yep, she's also got the slotted in drilled life, if you can see in there. Got some good power stop evolutions going. I recommend them. They're a very good brake. Like I said, I put 30,000 miles on this car, and when it went in for inspection last fall, they had still 80% pad left, so I'm happy. So what I originally paid for out of my pocket as this project was getting started were brakes, which I needed because the things were just rusted solid. I put power stop evolutions on there, drilled and slotted, ceramic pads, just because you don't want the metallic pads, because all they do is crap up your wheels, and you'll spend, countless days trying to clean that stuff off of them. So, moving onward, I spent $825 on the engine. Now, this guy started out on eBay at about $1,200, and I kept making offers here and there for about 3 months, and I kept getting rejected until about 3 months later, I finally was able to get the bid at $825, and he was able to do it for that. He told me I could hire the shipping company, and he'd put it on the crate and all that good stuff, so he did. YRC Freight came out and got it and brought it back to New York from where it was for $250. After the car was put together, I had to spend $62 on an Ecu Reprogram just to make the car run. So we've got the MagnaFlow cat. Somebody had cut the cat off the car when it was sitting, and they stole it. They also mangled a whole bunch of stuff, like the O2 sensor. I had to replace that, and shockingly, that was only $23. I don't know how that even happened. Serpentine belt was $18, and I bought $400 worth of tires just because I figured they were all flat spotted from sitting for so long. So, the parts that I paid for before we started the project was $2,903. Now, when we get to the shop, between the parts that they wanted to put on and replace and the labor, it was $2,200. Now, granted, I only spent $250 or so on the car, and right around, I would say, $5,353 was spent putting this car back on the road, getting it drivable, making it safe, the whole 9 yards. So we'll go through the receipt that they gave me, too, because it has a whole bunch more parts on here. Go figure. So, we could say, let's start with the thermostat. $70 for the thermostat for this car. It's pretty crazy. And we had to get a housing for it, which was $32. The manifold gasket set needed to be done, which was only $20 or $21. Throttle body injection gasket, fuel injector seal kit. We needed a clutch pilot bearing because we were switching the engine that I bought had previously had a manual transmission hooked up to it, so we had to switch out the pilot bearing. Walnut shells for the sandblasting of the valves. A bracket for the catalytic converter was $35. Some $40 almost exhaust clamp, antifreeze and all that good stuff. And then over here we've got 18 hours and $1,350 to replace the engine. Isn't that fun? And it was a whole 3 hours to remove the intake and replace on replacement engine and clean intake valves. So $225 to have all the valves cleaned out too. That's not a bad deal. So all in all, $5,353 is what was spent. And let me touch base again real quick on the fact of the APR that I put on this. It originally came with an APR Stage 1 tune, and I can't say that I'm too pleased with it at the moment. It was working fine for about 28,000 miles, and, well, sometimes, these things don't continue working out fine like that. Morning, everybody. It's the next day. Things just went a little bit late last night. I wasn't able to get all the footage done, so here we are. But I just want to say thank you for watching, and the most important thing about this is like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.